Okay, it's starting. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Own Your Story podcast. Today, I have here with me Daniel Lee.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So Daniel is the founder of Push to Inspire. He's an athlete and he's also a motivational speaker. So Daniel has done a lot of interview. If you guys Google him, Daniel Lee Push to Inspire. So I'm going to start this interview with a rather odd questions. So Daniel, who is the person that you most admire and why?
The person that most, well, I think my father is the person that I most admire because he was the one who gave me the principles and the characteristics that I have today, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what are
If
the
it's
principles?
not my father, the principles, I think I've learned some of the things that I value the most is family and friends. So I grew up poor. My family grew up poor, and so one thing I really learned is you can still be happy, even though you may be lacking in finances.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So you would say like he's the person who influenced you the most in your life as well. Would you say that?
Yeah.
All
So
right.
he was the one who laid the foundation and stuff.
All right. You're very lucky to have a great father, although I know that your father passed away when you are 14, 15?
Yeah. 14. Yeah.
But
I've always
he did
found
a
it really
great
funny.
job.
Yeah, I think even when I was young, I was about 10 years old, and I would think, how can I be a father like my own dad? Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely did a great job. All right, so we know your most admired person, and now is your 3 minutes commercial time. How would you tell your story to our audience?
Well, I was born with a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is essentially a very fancy way of saying brittle bones, and because of that, I've broken my bones many times. So sport was never really in the picture for me, but I've always wanted to be active. I think that's something that I've always wanted to do. And after I graduated from college, I started joining wheelchair marathons. I went from 21 km to 42 km, and in 2013, I did 100 km for charity, and we raised close to about 170,000 for the Dignity for Children Foundation. And I think because of that, I found that maybe I have a talent in sport, and now I'm training to pursue the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics in the sport of wheelchair racing.
All right.
Essentially, that's what I do and I aspire to be.
All right. So from your story, from your commercial, very short commercial, so we know that you grow up with a condition where you have brittle bones and you couldn't walk, right? And sports wasn't present in your life until college, after college.
After college, yeah.
So you start very late.
Yeah, I think I'm a testament that says that if you feel that it's too late to start something, it's not true.
Right.
Because I started after I graduated from college when I was 21. And for an athlete, it's not exactly the youngest age.
Yeah.
And I didn't even start as an athlete. I started doing marathons because I wanted to inspire. Hence the whole ideation of push to inspire, because I literally had to push to inspire people. But it comes from a belief that everyone can push beyond their perceived limitations and the challenges to fulfill your God-given potential. And when you do that, you inspire others to do the same. And after marathon running and whatnot, I joined sitting volleyball. So because I've always had a dream of being part of the Paralympics, and I found sitting volleyball first. And I played sitting volleyball for Malaysia in the Asian Youth Games in 2013 as well. And only last year in 2017, I resigned from my then job to pursue sports in a different field, which is from sitting volleyball going into wheelchair racing.
All right, wheelchair racing. So basically the experience, like how you know that you want to do wheelchair racing is from the previous experience. You just enter competition and then you win.
Yep.
Is that so?
I joined in those non-professional races because for a professional Paralympic wheelchair racing, there is a specific type of chair, a racing chair that you use. But I've never had that before. So I joined non-professional wheelchair runs, and I realized that every time I joined, I somehow either won first place or second place. And because of that, I realized I have some potential in it.
All right. So do you think like where you got to today, is it more about talent or more about the effort that you put in?
The old age question of nature versus nurture. I think it is about effort. You do have to find your talent, I believe. So, for example, I played sitting volleyball. I was rather good, but I knew the limitations to that particular talent. And I believe that I could go further in my talent in racing. So I think there's some talent that is in play, but a lot of times it is the effort and the work that you put in. Because again, I didn't start very talented since I was young. I only started much later in life.
Right. So along this journey of racing, right, like were there any naysayer? Were there people who don't think you can do it? Like were there any critics or challenges like that from outside? And,
I guess I'm very fortunate because I don't have a lot of them. I have more supporters than naysayers, but I did have a few. Some of them would ask whether aren't you a bit too old to start pursuing sports now, because I only started when I was past 25 when it comes to racing. So they say, aren't you a little bit too old to be an elite athlete? I've had a certain officer in one of the organizations who, while I was asking for advice for Paralympics, he said that, you are you now interested in Paralympics because there's money involved, because in 2016 our Paralympic athletes won gold, and that is like a million ringgit for each of those gold. And I think he thought that I was doing it for the money and I was risking everything. So yeah, I think there are some naysayers along the way.
And how do you deal with this kind of critics?
A lot of times you just focus on what you need to do. I think there's no reason to really deal with them. And also because I have so many supporters. So it's better for me to focus on those who support me rather than those who say that I can't. And there's no reason for me to even entertain them.
How do you figure out what you want? That is so, I would say I envy that, because sometimes I feel like it's so hard to decide what you want. And how do you come to the decision that Paralympic is something that I want to do? And how do you come to decide that I would spend years? I think you have to spend a few years, right, preparing for Tokyo Paralympic.
At least.
Like how do you have this vision for yourself and set this goal for yourself? And I remember that the first time I met you, I want to tell you this, the first time I met you, right, I remember you said, I'm going to Tokyo Paralympic 2020 to win the medal. I was like, whoa, that kind of confidence in you, that kind of spirit in you, I was like so impressed.
Thank you. I think what you said within the question itself was part of the answer, which is having a vision. And my vision started very small, I think, and it was many years back in 2008. So that was 10 years ago. I was watching the Beijing, the opening ceremony of the Beijing Paralympics, and I was waiting for the Malaysian team to come out, and I was waiting anxiously. And suddenly, I was just watching all the athletes walking out and looking at the crowd, and I somehow felt something in my heart, and I said, I want to be there one day as an athlete, and I want to look back as an athlete to the audience. I think it started like that, and then it got buried for a number of years, and I finished college and everything. Then it got rekindled. So I think having a vision of something greater than what you currently are is important to know your so-called purpose in life. So you've always, I think most of us want to always strive for something more, and you just need to find that what's that thing that you want more. Also, I think the difference between me and a lot of people is that I ask those questions earlier. So for example, I have a lot of friends or people who are my juniors in college who ask me, Daniel, how do you know your purpose in life? I always tell them, don't ask that question one semester before you graduate. So you ask it in your first year if you can. So as early as you can, you start asking those questions, although you may not find an answer. But I think by asking that question early makes a lot of difference and gives you the assurance, confidence.
For yourself, since you started sports after college, so growing up and even during college, what was your vision for your life, for yourself?
I've always believed sport was just a tool, an instrument, not a destination. And till now, I still don't believe that Tokyo 2020 Paralympics is my end goal. While I was in college, I was nurtured by people from the Christian fellowship that I was in. Because when I was in school, I've always wanted to hold leadership positions, like being a class monitor or a school prefect, but no one believed in me. But while I was in college, one of my mentors then was the president of the Christian fellowship. Her name is Lin, and she believed in me enough to give me my first leadership role. And since then, I discovered that when I shared my story, people listen and people are impacted. And my thought process, or rather my discovery of my so-called purpose, is to really inspire people, because I believe that everyone has a story, and that story can make a difference in somebody else's life. And sport came along later, simply because it fits into accomplishing that purpose of impacting lives.
Yeah, I can really resonate with that, because the title of my book is called The Art of Owning Your Story. It was also during my book launch when I was talking about the book on the stage, right? I remember I had a very profound moment when I realized that when I'm speaking, the audience are listening, and I had a platform to share my story, and all the struggle, the pain, the hurt that I went through, like all of them suddenly make sense. It's like all this pain, right? It can be transformed into something that can help people to relate and to heal and to feel that it's okay not to be perfect. It's to help people to see something, like see themselves in us, and none of us are perfect.
So exactly, and that is what I gained in my precious time in college. That those 4 years were the time where I grew from being, not confident, being shy, low self-esteem, to whoever I am today. Those 4 years were my growing years.
Yeah. How do you develop your public speaking skills?
Number one, I don't believe that I'm the best speaker technically. So there's always ways to improve, like finding courses that you can join, or reading books. Those are, I think, tools and that people can always get. At the end of the day, I believe in the genuineness of the story that you have. So in order to be a good public speaker, you need to be a storyteller. And you are
what makes a good storyteller? What's the secret?
The secret to being, I think, a good storyteller, especially when you're telling about your life, is sharing from the heart. That's number one. It sounds really cheesy, but essentially, it is about sharing what you believe deep in your heart. Because you can fake it. You can say a lot of things that is scripted for you and still not make an impact. But I've seen speakers who are not great speakers. I've seen people who can't speak English very well, who goes up with full confidence and really shares from their hearts. And I realized that people always listen when people are sharing genuinely.
Yeah, authenticity, right?
Authenticity. And also another aspect of it is, as a storyteller, you need to find stories. So be it finding stories from other people like you are currently doing, and sharing stories from your life, I also believe in creating opportunities for stories to happen.
Right.
So, for example, being in sport is a platform that I can create more experiences to share. And that was the whole reason why I joined wheelchair marathons, because I felt that running a marathon is like going through life, and there's a lot of lessons I learned.
Right. I love that. I love that because in my book I do mention that to live life like a story. Actually, there's an author who wrote a book about this. It's called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. So he said that like to make life worth living is about making life like a story. In a story, there's always a challenge, a goal, and a character overcoming challenges. And I can see you're doing exactly that, overcoming, like set a goal for yourself and overcoming the challenge to achieve that and create like a greater story of all. Like it doesn't matter whether like in the end, whether it's failure or success, it's the journey, right? You create so much throughout the journey, and that's your story, that's your assets. And
exactly.
That's what's inspired all of us. So
Yes.
in this journey of getting to Paralympic 2020 Tokyo, what is your biggest challenge right now? Or rather challenges?
Some of my biggest challenges is the fact that Malaysia don't really develop this sport of wheelchair racing, and therefore there is no coach in wheelchair racing in Malaysia, no program, no budget. And I was told that if I wanted to do this sport, I need to do it at my own expense and by my own capacity, because they don't have a coach. And because of that, also there are lack of competition. I think the only other competition I have at the current moment is a veteran who has been the top athlete in racing for years in Malaysia, simply because there are not enough competition around. And I wish to continue to push beyond, and and not just about being the best in Malaysia, because if I want to stand a chance in the Paralympic Games, I have to look further and I have to aim higher. Yeah, so that is one of the challenges. Another one could be just things that goes along the way. I think in the past few months, there are a lot of challenges. As you know, earlier this year, I broke a rib, and then in late of February, I fell down from my wheelchair and I injured my leg. And right now I have an issue with my eye, where I have some tears within my retinal nerve, and I have to go through surgery actually this week. So those are things that is not expected, that comes along the way. But I believe that when there is no test, there is no testimony. So a testimony of struggle and overcoming challenges has to come from testing.
I always believe that all these tests, right, is supposed to make us stronger, to develop the muscle, and also to give a story.
It's like going to the gym where you have
correct. It's like if you never stretch your muscle, you wouldn't be able to build it.
And I believe willpower or will is essentially like a muscle. You have to train it. It doesn't just come like that.
All right. So how do you get up? Because from what you say, it's a rather lonely journey. How do you motivate yourself and show up every day at the gym, show up every day to train yourself?
Well, there are a lot of days where I don't feel like it. And there are a few days that I probably miss training. But I think you have to be able to visualize it. And in order for you to visualize it, sometimes you need some help. So putting a physical picture of what you want to achieve and where you want to go, like the picture of a Paralympic Games, and that helps me in my motivation. I also find a few other platforms to help me in this area. For example, I post it on social media as sort of like a accountability thing, where my accountability partners are whoever who's following me. And suddenly, if I'm not training, I'm not really pushing it, then there are people who know this. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to know the purpose of the why of why you're doing something. Because if you have a strong why, you can always overcome the challenges that come along the way. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." That's from Friedrich Nietzsche. And that always inspires me to look back as to when things are tough, why am I doing this in the first place? You know, why did I even start all this? And that helps me to move forward.
So let's say on the day when you wake up and feel like you don't want to do it, you are just like not inspired when you wake up. Is there a steps that you get yourself back to the state where you just do?
But one of the things that I've learned, especially from reading books from Tony Robbins, and I had the privilege to go for his Unleash the Power Within seminar in Singapore, was that we can have control over our state by having three things or controlling three things. And number one is physiology, how your body actually works. Number two is the focus that you have. What do you focus on? Do you focus on the fact that you feel lazy, or do you focus on what you need to do? And the language that we use. Sometimes we wake up and the first, I think the thing about Monday blues is a whole number of generations of people really developing that that focus in your mind where, oh man, it's Monday and it sucks, and then immediately you wake up feeling tired and not wanting to do things. But what I do on days that I don't feel like training is immediately physiology. I change that part of me when I'm immediately I do 30 push-ups.
Wow.
Sometimes when you are awake, you feel really groggy and slow, and you don't feel like doing anything. And then you start saying things, and that just reinforces it. So immediately when you wake up, you do 30 push-ups, drink a glass of water that refreshes you immediately, and then focus on what you need to do today. Okay, I need to go for training today. I need to go when. So you set a time immediately. Okay, I need to go 9 o'clock morning, 10 o'clock. And when you focus on those things, you don't have as much time to focus on saying, oh man, do I want to go for training or do I not? It's always that question: do I go for training or do I not? Do I go for gym or do I not? Do I eat this piece of cake or do I not? When you focus on that,
it's also controlling your environment and coming up with a schedule, to set the environment right so that you don't have much reasons or excuses.
Yeah, so you have plenty of tools to help you, to be a bit more disciplined, like having a schedule. At the end of the day, you still have the power to not follow the schedule, but I think having it makes it clearer and easier. So I don't agree with people who just go to a gym not knowing what they want to do on that day.
Right.
Sometimes you ask, what are you planning to do today? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Generally, when you do that, you go with our brain is designed in a way that we achieve things in the least amount of effort possible.
Yeah.
So if
our willpower is limited.
Yes, and we don't plan to achieve things that is beyond our usual standard, then we tend to just go with the bare minimum.
All right. So we have talked a lot about striving and then struggling and then overcoming challenges. So at this point of time, what brings joy to your life?
Well, what brings joy to my life is spending time with people. I tend, because sometimes when people ask, what do you really like to do, or what's your hobby? I feel that I'm a rather boring person, because all I do is when I'm free, I hang out with people, and that's it. I like spending time with people, having a drink with them, at mamak or whatever, and just sit down and share life and share stories. That is, I think, one of my, the things that give me the most joy. Another one could be photography. I just take pictures.
I see. Fun. And I know that you read quite a bit as well. So
I try to. I'm not a natural reader, so I have to force myself to do it. Yeah.
Right. So is there one book that you will recommend everyone to read? That one book that means the most, that changed your life the most?
Well, okay, for me to choose, it's quite hard to choose, but one of my top books would be Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. And that book itself taught me a lot of the tools that I'm using currently. And of course, a lot of times we don't really learn tools, and then we just go with the flow. And actually, you realize that even going with the flow is not exactly wrong. And when I read that book, I realized, oh, these are the things that I've been doing all these years.
I see.
But knowing it helps me to do it with more intention, and with the intention of creating change and impact.
All right, and great recommendation. Thank you. And one last question. So if today will be the last day you spend on Earth, and you have the opportunity to leave only one message behind, like your existence will be erased and you can only leave one message behind, what will it be?
I think that message would be pour out your love to the world. I think the world has enough suffering and hatred as it is, but I think what really encourages me is that there are stories of love that really changes people. And if I were to leave anything behind, I want to leave behind a legacy of love.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing your story for us. And thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for next week. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. See you.
All right, I'll pause it now.